I'm Sarah Ruth with Kindle Togetherness. Welcome to my very ordinary, everyday and average kitchen that is not aesthetically pleasing. But what I wanted to do today was invite you into my kitchen because I have been getting so many questions about how to use a sourdough starter, the process of making various things. So I'm going to be working hard to be bringing you some content that includes various recipes that I make on a regular basis. I am currently cooking breakfast, and while I'm cooking breakfast, I'm going to prepare a couple sourdough boules, and I thought I would invite you to come watch, and maybe you can make one soon too.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
Alright, so the first thing that I have right here is a very happy sourdough starter. This was fed about 6 hours ago, and it is definitely at its peak. It's bubbly and happy. And for this recipe, which I will also put down in the description, you need 1 cup of active, happy, bubbly starter. I feed my starter rye. It's definitely not required, but I feel like it gives it such a more hearty feeding, and I don't find that I have to feed my starter as much as some of my friends who use other flours to feed theirs. So that's one of the reasons. So the first part of this recipe is to get your 1 cup of starter and then 2 teaspoons of salt, and as you can see, I'm not being perfectly exact. And then you need a cup and 1 1/4 cups of warm water. So I am running over to my sink to get that. Okay. Put my water in, and then once I get to this point, I actually like to give it a little stir, kind of incorporate that starter and that salt, so that the salt in particular is not all in one place. And then next up, you're going to need 3 to 4 cups of bread flour. You can use all-purpose for this, but bread has a higher protein content, and it's just going to give it a better overall texture and kind of perform better. So this is an approximate measurement. Again, you can be precise if you want. As you can see, I do sourdough simply. My friend Shanda was talking about this the other day in a video. You know, we're busy, right? I'm over here making breakfast at the same time as I'm making my sourdough boule. I don't want to have to get out of scale. I don't want to have to weigh things. I have had great success in the 20 years that I have been making sourdough, 20 plus years, make me feel really old, without ever needing to measure anything on a scale. So this is my method. This is my, oops, I made a mess, my simple method. So at this point, all of my ingredients are now in my my bowl, and so I'm just incorporating everything, making sure all my flour is mixed in with my starter and my water and my salt. So this is a 4-ingredient boule. Now, the cool thing about this is you can add anything you want to this. I typically, we really like garlic and rosemary. So let me go ahead and tell you that I put more flour than I needed in here, probably because I'm a little bit distracted talking to you. So I'm actually going to add just a smidge of water, and this is how forgiving sourdough is. When people tell you that you need a course or, you know, it's really challenging, it's easy to mess up, I just have not found that to be true. So here we go. I wasn't measuring real carefully. I make this every week, sometimes 2 or 3 days a week. And all I need to do now is just add a little more moisture. So simple as that. You can also notice I'm not using a bunch of different vessels. I use the same measuring cup for everything. And this this is it, guys. After you incorporate all of the ingredients together, you're gonna just let this rest. I'm gonna get a damp tea towel and I'm just gonna let my dough rest. So here I have a tea towel and I dampened it, I wet it, and then I wrung it out. I'm just gonna set it over the top of this bowl. I'm gonna put my starter away for use in another recipe here soon. And I'm gonna let this rest for about 20 minutes, give or take. And then I'm gonna do some stretching. All right, so this particular boule, I am making a rosemary garlic boule. So that's what you see. These are my inclusions. And a lot of times I put them in before the first stretch and fold, but I wanted you to see what the dough looked like without the inclusions. So during these stretch and folds, this is my second series of stretch and folds, I am mixing in my inclusions. And, you know, there are people, everybody has their own method for this, okay? There are people who feel very strongly that you need to do a total of 4 series of stretch and folds. I am not that person. Sometimes I get to 4, sometimes I'm busy and I just work through 2. You can hear that my kitchen is an active kitchen, that we do many things, that I do many things in my kitchen at one time. And I find that that works best for me, to multitask, to not only be making bread, but to be in my kitchen making bread and at the same time be making lunch and other things. So that was my second series of stretch and folds for this particular bread and my schedule today. This is going to be it. I'm now going to cover this with my damp tea towel and I'm going to let it rest for a good 8 hours. I'm watching for it to get happy. And by happy, I mean it's going to be more together and less sticky. It's going to almost double in size. And when these things have happened, which is often around 8-ish hours, 6 to 8-ish hours, maybe 10, depending on the temperature of my kitchen, then this will be ready for me to shape and put in my banneton or in a bowl. And then we'll go to the next step. So hang tight and the next part will be here shortly. All right, so at this point, I'm gonna take my wet tea towel off of my proofed dough. And this dough is somewhat sticky, but it is definitely doubled in size. Now, what you didn't see me do was I made a second dough because I needed 2 boules. So I am right now just kind of punching this down, so to speak. I'm getting the air out of it and I'm going to divide it and then I'm going to shape it and then it's going to go in for its second proof. So get this. So I'm going to go ahead and divide it in the bowl because I just find that to be easier. Remember, I did do some add-ins, so that's the kind of chunkiness that you're seeing right here is the garlic and the rosemary that I put together in this boule. But a lot of people do this in a very specific way. I am not a professional videographer, but I'm going to kind of show you how I tighten up my shape. And if I was wise, I would have flour on this surface and on my hand, but that's not what I'm doing right now. I know I can clean it up right away. So what I'm kind of doing is building some tension into this boule right now, trying to pull it together and tighten up the dough. And then I'm going to simply put it on here. There's a couple ways that I could do this, and this is why I should have flour on my hands. But I'm putting it on parchment for today. It's not how I always do it. I rinse my hands off a little bit It's not how I always do it. I don't always put it on parchment. I do have like little cloths with elastic that go inside my bannetons. But essentially this is how I'm going to do it today. So this is how this is going to be shaped up. It's going to get shaped on the parchment in the Banneton bowl. And now this is called a second proofing. And I'm going to set this at room temperature for 2 hours, and it's going to kind of poof up and double. And one of the ways that you can kind of test out if it's ready to be baked is you can indent with a finger. And if that indentation doesn't rise back up at all, then it is probably ready to bake. Honestly, I don't even do that. I just wait and watch for it to kind of double up and poof up. And then I know it's ready and I score it. So typically I would cover this back up with my tea towel and let it rest and proof this second time like another 2 hours or so. But I don't want to bake until the morning. So I'm actually going to cover this and put it in my fridge, and it's going to have a slow ferment overnight. And then in the morning I'm going to score it and put it in the oven. But if you were doing this on your countertop, after about an hour, you would want to preheat your oven in your Dutch oven at 500 degrees. So that way your Dutch oven has an even heat and you can transfer this directly into it and begin your bake. So anyway, that's where we're at in the process. Good morning. So last night I put my boules into the fridge and we're gonna pull them out together now. And I'm going to score them, and I have my oven preheated to 500 degrees with my Dutch ovens and lids in there already, so they're preheated. So we're going to go ahead and do this whole process together so you can see what a bake looks like. Just know that, you know, I did this to suit my timetable and my needs, but you could absolutely leave these at room temperature for 2 hours at the second proof and proof, you know, without ever putting them in the fridge. It's not necessary. It's just what worked for me today. And that's part of the versatility of sourdough. And what I love about it is that, you know, a lot of people are like, well, I'm tied to these timetables. No, you're really not. There are modifications you can make that work. So let's go finish up our bread. Okay, so a lot of people, if they do a second proof in the fridge, find that there's a hard skin on top of their dough unless they use saran wrap. I prefer not to use saran wrap. So I wet tea towels, and this doesn't have that hard skin. Remember, what you're seeing here are the additions, the inclusions that I put in. I put a little bit of garlic and rosemary into this boule. So here we go. I'm going to get myself some flour. So I'm going to put a little flour over the top of my boule, and this is just going to help you see the nice, we hope, my nice scoring. I'm not the best scorer, you guys. I try, but what I have found with scoring, now I can get a beautiful ear on all of my boules, but like actual scoring, not so much. But I've been successful with hearts recently, so that's what we're rolling with. And one trick for scoring that I am discovering and have discovered is that you gotta score deep, and you gotta score it into a properly proofed product. I find my boules do best if they have been in the fridge, so I don't get as good of a score if they've not been in the fridge. But to be honest with you, it's not like a big deal to me if I get a good score or not, because that's just like the extras. It's not like, it has nothing to do with whether your bread is good bread or not. So that's me. Maybe you're different. So let's get this into a Dutch oven and pop it in the oven to bake. So like I said, my Dutch oven has been in the oven now for a good hour or so. And if I was doing a counterproofing at room temperature for just an hour or two, as soon as my bread was in the Banneton for that second proof, I would go ahead and begin preheating my oven. So this is all very, very hot. Lid on for the first 20 minutes. And I leave my oven at 500 for this part of the bake. And then after 20 minutes, we're going to remove the lid and drop the temp to 450 for 20 minutes. So that's it. I've got an empty Banneton because I used parchment. This is clean. I don't have to deal with it. Okay, so I am just laughing at myself because I invited you into my kitchen and I told you we were going to bake bread together and I totally dropped the ball. I got you to the baking process. We put our boule into the oven and I bailed. Okay, so like I said, you're going to bake it at 500 with the lid on. You're going to reduce your heat to 450. Remove the lid. It's 20 minutes each. So 20 minutes at 500 lid on, 20 minutes at 450, no lid. Pull that beautiful boule out, which I should have shown you as I did it. But don't worry, I have one right here. I got all into the thick of my day. I have like a little side hustle sourdough thing going on. So here you can see the final product. It has a nice crust. Your crust should be dark on top. You can see my heart. And then one of the ways that you can tell if your boule is ready, kind of tapping the bottom, it'll feel pretty hollow. But when you pull it out of the oven, you want to remove it from the vessel right away and put it on a cooling rack. And you don't want to cut your bread for a minimum of an hour. You want to let that bread cool. It's actually going to continue to bake during that time because it's hot. And then, yeah, resist the urge to cut it right away. Let it sit for at least an hour. Longer's fine. And that's it. That's it. You have a beautiful boule if you follow these steps. So you can check out kindletogetherness.com for this 4-ingredient sourdough boule recipe. Truly, sourdough is simple. It is accessible to anybody. I will say that and continue to say it. But happy homemaking, friends. I hope to see you on another video.
Wake up,